correct. Oh, now it is.
A little late.
There we go. Well, you got out of it, Chief, of having your testimony or whatever, your presentation forever.
I'm sure there'll be another round.
I'm
Can
sure
I
there
ask a
will be.
question? I do want to ask a question about one line item, the police chief line item.
Yes.
I feel like that was under, was there parts of the police chief line item that were carried in another line item previously? And is that why that's increasing so much? Because I don't think the police
Exactly.
chief, it's not, I don't want it to be portrayed that you're looking for a $40,000 raise, Dave. So
No, I'm glad you brought that up. Actually, if you look at the line item that says incentive pay 5141,
yep.
that line item was previously included the chief's education incentive. So that line item actually has gone down because the chief's education incentive was incorporated into the actual salary in that one line of 5110.
Okay,
So
great.
the
I
incentive
just wanted
line
to
had
make a clarity on that because I don't want anybody to think like we're upping the salary of the police chief by 35,000 this year. I think that doesn't give justification for what actually is happening.
No, that's correct. It's about a $3,500 increase, whatever the contractual 2 or 2.5% was.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I'm playing with spreadsheets on my computer here.
Well, that's why I tried to bring it up. And so here's the total, though. The overall salaries are up 7.
Yeah, Jeff, I'm only looking at your email. You're not showing any spreadsheets on the screen.
Really?
Yeah,
all
when
I
you're
can
sharing the
see is
screen,
your
yeah, I
email.
think you're sharing just your Outlook.
Oh, huh.
You're not sharing the spreadsheet. Yeah, that's why I was going through. That's why I was
I
using
have the spreadsheet on my other screen, so that's what I was looking at.
Hang on.
Yeah,
Wait.
and then I can't see the Zoom meeting.
All right, I'll keep working it. Well, you got to go down to your Zoom thing in the corner, but hang on, I'll work on it. You guys keep going. I'll try to bring up the next one.
All right, so if there's not anything else, and again, thank you again, Chief. I'll go on to the next Chief. Fire Department Chief Zach Ward, budget and capital items.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So basically, for the fire department operating budget, I was just planning on going over a few highlights, some of the big increases that we have. Most of our lines are either COLA or level funded. We do have some very small expense increases. I just want to point out that I'm joined tonight by Deputy Chief Neil McPherson. Deputy Chief John Douse was unable to join us tonight. So really our two largest increases are both under the salary lines. The first one that you'll see are for call firefighter wages. It's an increase of about $10,000. So that includes two factors. It's number one, it's the COLA increase for the call firefighter hourly rate. And then it's the addition of approximately 300 hours for additional training time. We're as a department, we're really not where we need to be as far as training hours across the board for all staff. And that's what those 300 hours are for. It's really for training. If you look at that account covers a lot of things for us. So that covers all call firefighter responses, and it covers all call firefighter training, okay, for about 50 people, which is why that number is somewhat large. That's how it came out on my spreadsheet. But
Is this showing now, Zach? Is this?
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that now. Yeah.
Okay.
My spreadsheet just printed a little differently, but that's what it is.
This is Sharon's.
So that's what the call firefighter increase is. And then we have the larger one, which is the FD full-time lieutenant. So I believe, as you gentlemen know, the town applied for and was awarded a grant from FEMA, I think in 2018, late 2018, mid to late 2018. So what this number reflects is the grant expiring and rolling off, and the town picking up the cost of that position. That the town is fully mandated to cover that position at least through February of 2022. And I believe, when the grant was applied for and accepted, that somewhat of the expectation was, or the thought was, is that the town would pick up the salary going forward. One good thing is is that the benefits for that position have already been accounted for on the benefit line items for the last 2 years. So you're not going to see a double whammy. Basically, how this has worked is FEMA has picked up 75% of the cost for that position. The town basically just paid the benefits, and FEMA picked up the salary. And that's really what that's all about. I think, you know, it's certainly been brought up a couple of years. I can certainly answer any questions and go into as much detail as you want. I know you have a long meeting, and you know, I could go on, but and those are our two big salary lines. And then if you go down to expenses, we have over 4 different line items, a total of $1,000 in increases. Excuse me, $1,050 in increases. And it's all just to reflect what we're actually paying out now. Things like cell phones, the internet and email postage, and then our dues and subscriptions. We're just really trying to accurately account for all those things to what we're actually spending, or will be, or, you know, are spending in the current fiscal year.
Okay. I had a quick question. Oh, are you done, by the way? Sorry. Is it time for questions?
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you.
So I have a quick one, and I'll recognize George.
Yep.
So was it terms of the grant that actually said that we're obligated to fund the position for another year or two, or whatever it is?
So this is how the grant works. Okay. So the period of performance runs in year-long blocks from February to February. Okay. So starting at the end of this upcoming February, we're entering year 3. Year 3 calls that FEMA funds 35% of that position, which basically just brings us to July 1st as far as the salary goes. So the town is fully obligated to fund that position through the end of February 2022, because that's when the period of performance ends. And then, you know, it's a very highly competitive grant. You know, typically what fire departments just like us do is then they pick that up, you know, into their operating budgets going forward. The grant program is kind of the bridge to get the town from where it is to where it needs to be as far as staffing.
Okay. Okay. George, yeah, you had a question.
I have a question on the same line item, just because it is such a large increase.
Absolutely.
What can you describe? This is what probably you're going to be asked from advisory and at public hearings and stuff. Describe what the full-time lieutenant does and why it's necessary for the town.
So there's really 2 aspects to this. So the first one is staffing, okay? And that's literally why the town got the grant. So what that grant program does is it allows towns to meet a standard. It's NFPA 1720. And that's the standard for the organization and deployment of fire suppression operations, EMS operations, and special operations to the public by volunteer fire departments. Say that several times quickly. So basically, this is what has happened, okay? So the Sherburne Fire Department historically was a large group of people from town, basically all residents, and most of the people worked in town, lived in town and worked in town. And as the demographics of the town have changed, the demographics of our members have changed. As we sit today, out of 54 people, only 14 are residents, and I'm certainly working to boost that number up. And we have 40 non-residents that are on-call members of the department. As Sherburne became a commuting town, we have less and less call firefighters available during the daytime hours, okay? And you say, well, you know, why is that important? So we actually do 50% of all of our calls between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. So it's our busiest time, and it's when we're the least staffed. Sherburne's seeing a large increase in calls, you know. So we just finished 2020 with 649 calls. That's up 74 calls from 2019. Just to give you an idea, in 2014, the department responded to 487 calls. So we're up almost 200. I mean, next year, I would certainly predict that we're going to be over 200 from where, in addition to where we were from 2014. You know, our situation with the water really relies on us staffing 4 pieces of apparatus quickly. Where in most towns it's an engine and a ladder. We have an engine, a ladder, a hose truck, and a tanker. And the best thing that we can do as firefighters is get the first truck there, especially during the day, as quickly as possible, to hopefully keep the small fires small. And that's what that position's for. We also need to meet OSHA 2 in and 2 out. Now that we're in OSHA state, we're mandated to meet OSHA 2 in and 2 out. And what that is if the fire department responds to a fire and a fire attack, interior fire attack is underway, we have to assemble, per the OSHA standard, a minimum of 4 certified firefighters there before that can happen. 2 can go into the building, 2 have to remain outside of the building. In Sherburne, with our setup, it's more realistic that we need 5 to accomplish that. So those are just kind of some of the standards as far as our staffing. Also, obviously during the day, school is in session. There's more traffic on the roadways. Construction is taking place. The town is certainly at risk during the daytime hours. Some of the duties performed by this position. Currently, the frontline supervisor for responses in all of the day shift activities at the station. Responsible for a lot of the general maintenance duties around the stations and the apparatus. There's a lot that goes into that. She serves as the department quartermaster, so manages gear, things like air packs, inspecting that stuff, replacing it, training people on it, a lot of those factors. She serves as the OSHA compliance officer, as we're in OSHA state, as we talked about. The safe officer, that's the school fire safety person that goes in, teaches to the kids and manages other programs in town. And also serves as the assistant fire training coordinator for our staff. So there are kind of a lot of hats worn by that person who's doing a really good job now. And I certainly think that the town needs this position. I'm honestly shocked that it didn't happen years ago.
Okay.
Thanks, Zach. So that's a good description of what I was looking for. I just, like I said, it's not that I don't support it. I just want to have, I know it's a big increase, so we want to have a good justification for when people ask.
Yeah, and I have I didn't want to go through a whole thing, unless you guys wanted me to tonight, just because I know you have a long agenda. But I'm happy to provide any information you may want. So.
Any other questions from the board before I take general public? Again, I just if people could use the hand, if I'm gonna put on participants, the raise hand emoji, because again, I can only see about 6 people at a time, and when you physically raise your hand, it's going to be difficult to see, if not impossible. Not the emoji, the hand thing.
Hark?
Yeah, Paul. You have a question? Yeah.
I'm just questioning the procedure here. We discussed the fire department, we discussed the police department, but we didn't take really any action, and we didn't give any direction, and we haven't taken any positions.
Paul, I'm going to repeat what I've repeated for the last, I think, 2 or 3 years. I don't like to vote on budgets until we've seen them all, because I feel like it's a big picture thing that you need to absorb them all and give feedback. If I haven't seen any feedback that I don't agree with what they're presenting, or I would have said something, but I think voting on a budget before you've seen all the budgets is irresponsible.
And I just want to add that, this is similar style I believe we did last year. I personally, in addition to what George said, like to see them all as well. I like to frankly absorb it more. I like to hear, and it's too big of a thing for me to listen to a couple sentences and then be like, vote to support it or not. We will definitely see these again. If you want to make a motion, you're certainly welcome to do that if you want to take this a little further. But I support just seeing, absorbing, and then taking action, or support or not support later. Because
that's kind of how advisory does it too. They get the initial presentation, they give some feedback if they don't agree with something, and then they don't vote until the public hearing in March.
So I wasn't proposing that we take votes. What I was trying to figure out is, what is the procedure? Because my sense is from last year, there are some budgets I'm not sure we ever took votes on. Well, and we ended up being, at the end of the season, having so many different pressures that we never had that. I don't feel that we've had that kind of comprehensive discussion that both of you have indicated would be a good idea, in part because we didn't have we don't have jurisdiction over all the budgets. We have only jurisdiction over some of the budgets. So I'm just trying to lay out
Okay.
for myself and for the viewers what we're doing. And so right now we're listening to presentations and essentially just asking questions. And then what? What happens at next week or the week after or a month from now? Where,
Yeah, George. Oh, sorry.
what is the plan?
Okay.
That's
Well,
where-
I would say my thought on it is that before the advisory public hearing, after we've seen all the budgets that report to the select board, I'm not saying all the budgets in town because we don't see the school. I mean, we have no jurisdiction over the school budgets or the town clerk or the collector or anything like that. I think we see all our budgets and then make a recommendation based on the budgets that report to the select board after we've seen them all. And I mean, in the meantime, we can also obviously, Sharon shares with us the overall picture, because if the schools have a large increase and we need to find a way to supplement that, or if the town clerk needs something big or the collector or whatever, we all need to work together. So before we see all the budgets, even though we don't have jurisdiction over some of them, I'm not comfortable voting until we see what the overall picture looks like. And I think what we can do tonight on these is, if we see something that we think we should suggest to, the fire department or the police department or DPW that, well, maybe we don't need that this year. Or that's why I asked Zach to justify that lieutenant position, because that's going to be asked to be justified at town meeting and by advisory. We should be advising the budgets that report to us as to why they're asking for what they're asking for. And if we think some of it's too much, then we should be asking them to cut it back.
Sean
I do
Colleen
think-
has his
I
hand
do want
raised.
to, but then I'll make a comment and then, okay, and then I'll recognize Sean. I do think Paul brings up a good point. And maybe actually I can work with David to kind of at least lay out a little bit of a schedule, like, what departments we see when, I think that's in there, and then have like a summary meeting, just the select board itself, to have with the department heads before attending that meeting, to basically absorb, listen, and then start asking the questions and then take the votes at that point. So I don't know, Dave, if you have something laid out, or if you want to work to get something just like, these departments this week, these departments next week, these departments week after that, fourth week, we can then have the collective meeting. And I think Paul's looking for a little bit of structure, which I think is reasonable to ask for.
Yeah, we should talk with Sharon.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and see what she's thinking too. So
So
Because I think another part of that is, I think a lot of I think advisory wanted the select board budgets to be coming before us before they're presented to advisory. So they know that, as a budget that reports to the select board, we're either in support, like we're behind it. I think we should be reviewing the budgets that are under our umbrella before they should be going to the advisory committee.
I agree.
are you saying they should be voted before they go?
No, not voted.
Please
I'm saying
report.
reviewed and discussed, like we're doing tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if we have ownership of it, we should at least be knowledgeable what's going before advisory.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if we had a major, like if we saw something, like say, for instance, not that I'm suggesting this, but if Zach presented that and we said, Zach, I really don't think it's a good idea to have adding 69,000 for a lieutenant this year, we should be having that discussion with Zach before advisory saying that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's all I'm
tried.
suggesting. And I think what we did with the police is we kind of, in a way, we didn't vote on it, but nobody suggested he cut anything back. And now we're discussing fire and nobody's suggested it yet. But if there's anything that we suggest cut back before it goes to advisory, we should be doing that.
Well, so here's the issue for me, like with regard to the police. I've been suggesting an agenda item in which we discuss the financial implications of the new Police Reform Act and what it's going to cost the various communities, and particularly what it's going to cost the town of Sherburne. And so I'm not sure the police budget is enough, but I didn't feel that because we haven't had that agenda item, that discussing the proposed budget was the place to talk about the changes that are coming. But so will I have another opportunity?
February
To-
4th. Paul, you had made that request for that agenda item. It's been placed on. I talked to Dave about when he would be comfortable bringing something forward to give an update on where they are in the certification process. And then you could have that discussion, but it's right now it's scheduled for February 4.
Paul, I would
So-
suggest though, if we're discussing budgets, you should be bringing that up tonight. You should be saying, Dave, did you account for, like, this is the time for us to be making adjustments before they're going to advisory. If you
Well,
think
that's why
they
I'm
need a higher
asking.
budget, you should be suggesting that as we discuss these budgets tonight.
Well, that's why I was asking whether we're just listening and asking questions so that we understand. And I think that's the guidance that we just got, that this is to listen and to ask questions, not to get into a big discussion of a 123-page bill that has all kinds of burdens being placed on the police department.
But if it affects their budget, you should be bringing that up. That's what I'm saying. Like, tonight's the night that we need to say, wait a second, you may be missing something, or wait a second, you're way too high because we can't justify a tax increase for that. So tonight's the night you really should be digging into those details on those budgets, I think.
Well,
Dave
given that we're
said-
still in kind of a longer term process of looking at the budgets, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if it gets presented next meeting, that's the 4th, and then we either modify or then discuss the impacts on the budget at that point. It's not like it's done after we take votes or anything else like that. It might not be as perfect as discussing it now, but I do think it's going to be a lengthy discussion. I looked into the police reform bill a little bit this last week, and I think it is a complicated issue. I don't think it's something which is just going to, be a line item on a budget.
I mean, that's an item that we talked to Dave Bento about, and he requested that we have more time when we originally looked at having that discussion tonight.
Yeah, we want an opinion from the chief and possibly even the union if it affects the operations of the police.
Yeah.
I just don't want to present a budget to advisory from one of our departments that then goes up. I think the initial ask should be, like, if Paul, I didn't know about that, Paul, that there's potential for a lot more expenses in the police department, we should be telling Dave to increase his budget before he goes for his initial pass at advisory if we think there's going to be a lot more expenses. I think that's an important piece on an initial budget that we can't leave out.
You could also, George, you could also plug something in there as a placeholder.
Mm-hmm.
Probably 75,000 or 125,000. It's something that's going to take place over several years.
Mm-hmm.
So, whatever extra you can put and say that this is designated for that purpose,
Right.
that might be good
I
direction.
think it'd be better to have it higher now than after we've all reviewed an initial pass and then come back and say, oh, wait a second, the police department's budget's got to be $100,000 higher. That's going to really throw a wrench in everybody's plans from advisor. Just from my experience on advisory, that would be like, wait a second, I'd rather have a higher budget up front and then say, well, maybe we don't need quite that much.
Yeah.
Well, I still contend, though, that if the agenda item is on the 4th and they're not going to advisory before then, it's not the worst thing in the world to have a deeper discussion about the bill and its budgetary impacts at the next select board meeting. I think I know there's a lot of discussion going on here, but I think, frankly, we've done worse. That's not the worst thing in the world, and I'm reasonably satisfied with how that's going to proceed.
So I have
So
a clarifying
Like
question.
Jeff, recognize Jeff.
I have a clarifying question to ask because I ditched you guys last year when I was speaking in Amsterdam, but didn't you have an all-day Saturday meeting like very early February? There was joint meeting with advisory. It wasn't an advisory public hearing. I thought you went through the select board budgets, but you did it simultaneously so that the various departments that report to the select board didn't have to present twice.
I think we
Didn't
did
you
do that
something-
last year.
I
Yeah.
missed that. So I'm wondering if that might be a useful meeting.
Yeah.
Paul's asking about process. I think I missed that meeting. I actually flew back that day, but I thought you did the select board budgets in a joint meeting with advisory, didn't you?
David, do you want to talk to Stephen Tsai and see if that's something that we could do? I mean, I know it'll be different this year because we're all remote, but maybe that does make sense.
Yeah. I'll talk to Sharon and then we'll we can talk to Stephen about that. But yeah, it hasn't been scheduled yet.
But Jeff,
I
thank you
do-
for
I do
reminding me. I
wanna-
forgot we did that last year.
Yeah,
Like-
if it's a rigorous discussion, particularly on police, it'd be better to just do it once, for the police
Absolutely.
department.
And actually, Eric, I just want to point out that you do have time because fire and police aren't going before advisory until February 10th. So
very
you
good.
can put it on the agenda for the 4th and that will work.
Very good. Okay, thank you very much, Sharon. Thank you. All right, is there anything else?
Just to reiterate that I'm concerned that we have a plan and that we have a schedule. And that I do want to start to revisit budgets so that this listening and asking questions about the budgets isn't the only time we have a discussion. As we learn more about other departments and as we have that discussion about the police reform bill, it behooves us to have on the schedule the opportunity to review and recall budgets to try to make the budgets under our control work as one comprehensive budgetary plan, and also to have that fit into the rest of the town and the rest of the other budgets. So I'm sort of advocating, but it was a question to begin with was, really what is today about? And I'm not prepared to spend an hour talking about the police reform bill and what other communities are telling me they see as the costs associated with it. I'd rather like the idea that Eric has been articulating of hearing what the department heads are saying, what their needs are, what they're proposing, and asking questions about it and understanding it. And so that's the way I'm approaching today. It's not really, I think, time for me to say cut something or add something yet, but I want to have in the schedule that opportunity downstream somewhere. That's what I've been trying to say.
Okay, yeah, and I think that's communicated well. Are there any questions from the general public? And once again, I'm going to ask if people can click on participants on your computer and you use the raise hand thing, because that's what I'm watching right now, because I only see 5 people at a time when we share the screen. So please don't physically raise your hand like it's in school. Someone once said that Sean had a question. Sean, do you got a question?
I had a few comments, but most of them were covered. I will make a point that this is probably the earliest you've had your budgets in front of you.
Yeah.
And I've long been frustrated by the fact that even last year with the dual meeting, I was in front of advisory at least 3, if not 5 times before the select board. So if the select board has any input in the budget, it's too late. If someone's already sat in front of advisory 3 times, they've already decided to push back on it, cut. So the direction that should be coming from the select board is lost if it's that late. And that was probably the problem with the dual meeting. That meeting was basically just a rerun or a prelude to the advisory hearing, because that was the first time the select board heard several of the budgets. So it was a little bit too late if we were going to try and steer anything before advisory already had their model set up.
That's a very good point. And like I said, select board has ownership of this. And David, I'll contact you around Monday or Tuesday and see if we can kind of lay out kind of a rough overall schedule, maybe even present it at next meeting of how, the strategy. You probably already have one. But,
Well, we just tried to plug them into agendas and how it made sense, and trying to get them in with trying to work it with Sharon. So we'll look at it more closely and see if they jive.
Yeah, lay it out like this week, these 3, next week, so on. Okay, I think we all get the point. Okay, if that's, I think that's good for now, and we have at least some of a direction moving forward. I'm going to go back to Sean as DPW, Town Buildings, Transfer Station, Sean Colleen, Director, and Budget.
Where do you want to start?
Whatever I can find.
You can find town buildings. I have the perfect example why this should start early rather than,
Sharon,
now.
do you know how that is in relation? I'm not as familiar with
Keep
Vadar.
rolling up. Town buildings is at 192, so you're almost there. Keep going up. Now you're going down.
Building, you want, it's 192, you said?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the Excel spreadsheet.
220, 220, 210.
You're into it now.
Yeah, so where does it start? Right there?
It's page 20. Yeah. Yeah.
That's town building salaries right there.
Yeah. So there's not a lot to talk about here except, and there's Sharon. I'm going to make her on mute in a minute. What you don't see is that the budget I submitted included a handful of line items for the library operating budget. And there were some meetings, and I don't remember if Jeff was there, but there was a couple meetings with some advisory members, the trustees prior to doing the budgets, with the purpose of trying to get some of the operating budget library expenses out of that budget and putting it into town buildings. And it would only be the ones that are similar to the line items that are typically in the rest of the town buildings other than the school. The electricity, the fuel, your elevator maintenance, your sprinkler maintenance. Several of those are new items to the library anyway, so there's no history. They didn't have a real elevator. They didn't have a sprinkler system. So what I did is I built it out and mirrored some of the town hall line items. The reason it doesn't show up here is because we didn't have enough direction to put that work on the finance department in creating a handful of new accounts. I think it's valid to do. I basically named them all. I built them in, but they didn't show up in Vadar, which is what you have. I was for doing that because I think it's better to just track all the buildings together. It's still taxpayer money. It's not like we're taking expenses that would have otherwise been on some of the donated accounts. It's expense money that's being voted on the library operating budget. So it would just be a sweep over here. What I'm saying is I submitted it, but we held shy of actually putting it into this budget until we had some direction from both this board and advisory with a definitive, yeah, finance should probably create those accounts, put them into Vadar and show it. And then adjust both budgets.
Because you have sub accounts here, as you well know, for each building in some categories, not in all categories. But here you have town building / town hall septic maintenance or whatever. So you've created some that are by building.
Right, and that's actually a good example of, there's a handful of, I don't know how many people realize it, but there's a handful of shared things that, the septic at the future library is its own animal, but the community center and the town hall and the police department all share a septic system.
But you have an allocated cost here, so you have town building, septic maintenance, town hall, DPW, fire department.
Right. Well, yeah, and we're in the process of knocking some of those down where they're redundant, but some of them need to stay separate. But there's a shared generator between the library and the town hall. There's no sense in separating those expenses. It's one generator now.
Right.
And it was the best place to get the baseline numbers. Most of the expense after it's built is inspections, state inspections and repairs on the sprinkler system and the elevator. So the best history we have is town hall. Other than that, most of the increases were minimal. There's a couple decreases. I leveled some out to what either the 3-year average was. There was a couple utility bills that weren't in line with where they're supposed to be. There's no sense in underfunding. You'll notice that Town hall fuel was low. It's been low for at least the 3 years that we have in Vadar. There's no sense in leaving that low. It's not an increase, it's just reality.
Well, it's affected now because of COVID when you're not having people there all the time.
Yeah, well, this year's forever going to have an asterisk next to it because fuel's going to be way off. Not so much because of people, because we're leaving windows open. We're increasing ventilation.
That's true.
It didn't hit much in the summer. If we get a real cold snap, it's going to hit in the winter. But a lot of these were based on the 3-year actuals, not the current year.
I personally think it makes sense to include the library here, Sean. I think that's the right. I think that's the right thing to do because it is a building maintenance thing, and I think this kind of conglomerates all those similar line items together in one place.
I'm always torn, George, because I sometimes want to know. You're right.
I know you were going to say this, Jeff. I've been working with you long enough.
But I want to know, what does it cost to have a library, you know?
Right.
And so if you have it distributed everywhere, you don't know what the cost of a particular service is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an allocation issue. It's not really this is useful for cost management, you know, and obviously
Right.
You want to buy in bulk, you know, from one vendor for all your HV elevator maintenance or whatever it is. But sometimes you want to know what a specific function costs.
I wonder if you could, I'm sure Sharon could run, since it is still all separated out by building, you could still run a sensitivity analysis on each building, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're not going to lose that visibility.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's not all going to be trapped in one budget,
Right.
but you're not going to lose that visibility. It's going to each line that was added is going to be added as its own line item. So those are very easy to separate. I mean, there's no question what the town hall electricity was, and there's not going to be any question what the library electricity will be. So I don't think you'll lose that. It may take one more step to run that report at the end of the year, but I don't think you'll lose that. But you do end up getting some of the synergies of seeing it all in one place.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the general public? And I can't say enough, please use the raise hand feature. I'm not going to see you wave at your computer. Okay, it doesn't appear so. And, you know, again, I'm glad we're doing this format, not to beat it up again, because I know I've already thought of questions about the police, and that was like 3 presentations ago. So I'm glad to know we're going to see this again. And I'm sure after I absorb Sean's, I'll have some more questions for him.
Sean, how many different budgets do you manage here? I just have to ask.
3.
Well, no, you have the town buildings, but then there's how many under DPW? That's what I was trying to look at here.
Well, 5.
Are we going on to DPW?
But we're going to treat it as one.
Okay.
Maybe by next year we're going to create it as one.
What's the number? What's the number for DPW?
So start at 420, Jeff.
Because I'm looking at the Excel spreadsheets and there's 429, 425, 424, 423, 422, and 421.
And 420.
And 420.
420, 421, 422,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
And those should
7.
not be, and they're not at town meeting. They're treated as one.
Okay.
From 420 to 429 are one. Unfortunately,
okay, so the one I'm looking at in Excel are 7. That was confusing me because there's 7 different spreadsheets.
Right. And I'm hoping we can make a change and try to get those to roll up. I know we can in a report anyway, because I have. But it doesn't do it in this budget where it throws one roll-up number. Because if I shift out of 421 and shift to, or you'll see in a minute, we took out a 429. But 421 went up. It doesn't matter. It's a single budget.
That's what I was trying to look at because I did notice that 429 was way down, but I can't see it all as a roll-up.
Yeah,
see
the
what your
total's
overall
not.
budget looks like.
Right, and the total's not down that much. But this is kind of a holdover. We haven't rolled this all up into one. It's a holdover from years ago where it was many of the things were treated separately. Again, this is a single line item on the budget at town meeting.
Is one of the changes you're shifting around some of the salaries from different, looks like you've got more going into DPW general with the skilled labor. You got rid of a general foreman, and then in 429, you got rid of a
Equipment
lineman,
operator.
LM foreman.
Well, right now, there's not a foreman. And again, that's, some of that is the tail end of getting rid. I mean, land management doesn't need to be its own budget. It was too much moving stuff around this year. Because again, we really don't separate land management like they used to. So
Well, we're already going into the deep dive. Sean, why don't you just
Oh,
give
sorry.
kind of a general talk about DPW? I obviously have some questions about it or whatever else, but just give a general discussion and then we'll ask our questions.
okay, so there's a lot of moving parts in this. Probably everyone on this call knows we went through 3 retirements this past year of what was about 120 years of service. The mechanic that had been here over 40 years, the general foreman that had been here over 40 years, and a foreman that was 20 something years, I think. There was some changes then, and of course, by the time 2 of them left, we were right in the heart of COVID. So this year, again, like I said before, this year is forever going to have an asterisk. We went from 8 people, and in just over 12 months, we went down to 4. And we held that for a little while, and I finally brought some new people in. But for the purposes of this budget, the general foreman, we netted out, and the foreman, as we had said on the land management side, we netted out to 0 because just about everyone we brought in was skilled laborers to start bringing some people back into work. Again, we're under COVID restrictions, so it's pretty tough to get a whole lot done. And as everyone here knows, we're going to head into a collective bargaining. So we're not going to talk a whole lot about what the staffing plan is. But what's here is relevant to what we have right now. And that's what we're going to hold, at least to start the year. We're heavy on laborers and we're light on foremen.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
So right now, do you only have one staff member that can run a piece of equipment?
No. Everyone can run a piece of equipment.
They all have their license. They're all licensed, whatever. Just because, I see general equipment operator and I see skilled labor, and those skilled labor is still required to have a hydraulics license?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Everyone under their contract is required to get their CDLB and oysters. It's just a difference in the duties, but essentially anyone can do any job here.
Okay, so it just looks like, just like you said, looks like you're cutting an equipment operator and adding 2 skilled laborers.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure I'll have other questions later, but just so I understand it.
Sharon, is there a way to roll up? Is there a way for us to see a roll up of his budget? I know you can't do it right now, but I'm saying for our next meeting, it's so
Yes.
confusing to try to look at all these budgets and get an overall picture of what we're looking at for DPW.
Yep, absolutely. I actually had, I had them create a report for me last year, and I'll reach out and get them to create it again. So I'll do a roll up of all DPW, and it'll make it a lot easier to look at. And then also for the next meeting, Sean, what I'll do is I'll incorporate all the library building expenses into the town buildings budget. You and I can work on that. So
Right.
I'll make those.
I think I have those highlighted pretty well, so that it'll be relatively easy. We didn't want to push that through without at least some backing to do it.
Yeah, so absolutely, I'll do that for the next meeting.
Great.
Anything else from the board? Anything from the general public? All right, not seeing anything. We want to thank you very much, Sean. Like I said, I'm sure we'll be talking to you more.
Well, do we?
Hey, we're not done. We got one more budget.
Yeah.
Oh, damn, that's right. Darn, sorry.
This is a fun one. Transfer
I'm
station.
recording it now. Yeah, okay, that's right, the transfer station.
Darn.
I know.
Another one that I don't know when it'll ever come down. So there's a couple of decent increases in here. It should be no surprise to anyone, especially someone that works in Framingham,
I know.
that recycling's going up significantly.
It's crazy. It's more expensive than trash.
Yes, and it's going up at a faster rate. So what I did is I leveled out trash itself. It went up 11%. Recycling went up 50%, and I don't know if that's going to cover. Again, we have no control. Not only do we have no control over the market, we have no control over what shows up. This year, obviously, everything's up. I tried to look at the numbers. People stayed home for months and cleaned their houses out.
Sorry.
And they increased the tonnage on everything. They were recycling, they were throwing stuff away, and sadly, we kept the swap shop closed for public health reasons. That's not good for the volume of trash that leaves. Unfortunately, if you can't recycle it, you can't reuse it. It goes in the trash. So the tonnage has been up. But what I tried to do is represent where I think we're going to land on tonnage with the disposal. And we don't know what the market's going to do on recycling. I don't see it coming down anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't either. I've said this at my MMA meetings. The state has been just almost non-responsive. Every time they want to, give a help desk, give another education seminar about it. There was the glass recycling facility in Worcester closed. We're looking for tax incentives to open up more of these facilities, but there are more and more of them going away. We all know about the China ban. In fact, there's actually a philosophy that a fair amount of the plastic that's floating in the Pacific Ocean is actually stuff intended for recycling. Under the car, and I don't want to say something bad at a public meeting, but there's some philosophy that what is it? Is it better to actually dispose of in a energy reclamation, or is it better to recycle? At this point, right now, that's unknown. So it's unfortunate. It is what it is. But the state still has recycling requirements. They can still audit your trash, or whatever you call it, and find communities who aren't recycling sufficiently. And
they do. And I somehow. Selectman Dorenzis pulled off a meeting with the DEP commissioner at town hall. I guess I'm trying to think of what month that was. It was before the shutdown. So it was during last fiscal year. And he and several others came out, and of course we're very proud of our recycle center, and they, they're very impressed with it, with the strides we've made. But it resulted in not a whole lot. The fact is, there's not much they can do. They don't want to lift the ban on recycling or throwing away most of the materials that are recycled, but it's in the hand of some people that are for profit, obviously, and they got to stay afloat. And a lot of businesses have gone out. We've had at least 4 of our vendors go out of business without any notice at all.
yeah.
One thing to add with the absence of the swap shop, just to throw it out there, I've seen it on Facebook. There's this Buy Nothing Dover Sherburne site on Facebook that a lot of members of the community are part of, that people are swapping items online where they can deliver them to each other. And I think it's really worked out well. And you see a lot of things going back and forth without it hitting the transfer station or anything like that, which is kind of it's a nice concept. And it's just something I wanted to throw out there that I've seen the community. It's a community-based activity that only people within Dover and Sherburne are part of. So
What's it called?
it's called the Buy Nothing Dover Sherburne Mass Project. And they have it in a lot of other communities, but it's on Facebook. You have to be on Facebook to do it, but it's a cool concept. People post things that they just don't need anymore, and other people who need it, they meet up or they drop it off at each other's houses. So
Yep. Well, I'm gonna be posting something. I'll use my position as chair to self-advertise. I'm looking to get rid of a cabinet that I actually have had for years. And if anyone's interested, it actually is the old chemistry cabinet of Solon Academy.
Oh, wow.
My father picked it up. I've had it. I just don't have a place for it.
Yeah,
So
check it out on Facebook. It's a cool site that they only let people who are residents of Dover and Sherburne in there. So it's a cool concept, and it's really taken off. There's a lot of activity on there.
okay, cool. All right. Any questions for Sean from the board? Any from the general public? And again,
Well, just a
Paul.
question.
Yeah.
On fees. We charge for some things at the transfer station. And to sort of offset the cost of things, have we looked at those fees recently to see if they're at the right levels?
Last
They
year we
just
went
got-
through all of them.
Yeah, they just got raised. I think even since I've been chair, I think it's been like
Yeah.
at least maybe
They
the last
have.
6 months.
And that falls back on the recycling committee, and they do a really good job of tracking that. What we
Yeah.
try to do, or what they try to do, is not react too quickly to some of the changes in the market, because we literally have been caught with materials there and called the vendor and they disappeared. So we try to let the market shake that out a little bit. But they've raised some fees. I think they raised the fees on electronics and possibly mattresses. But they look at that continuously. But of course, the biggest nut in that budget is recycling and disposal.
It was definitely electronics was raised last time, because 2 days after I voted to raise the fees, I had to get rid of 3 TVs.
I know last year we raised the fees, and when I was writing checks when I moved over the last year, it was I was like, damn it, why did we raise all these fees?
Yeah, I mean, I will say there's a limit to how high you can raise the fees before the DPW ends up paying more in fees, because we pick them up on Prospect Street. So
That's right.
it is a double-edged sword a little bit.
Pay as you throw.
Right.
Pay as you throw in Natick means throw it out in Sherburne. That's what's going to happen.
Exactly. And Framingham.
That's exactly. All right. Anything else? Okay. Not seeing anything. I think we're finally done with this, but not done with Sean. We're finally done with the budgets. Sean, I'll keep the spotlight on you for agenda item number 4, Complete Streets Tier 3 project. You're looking for a vote to support the execution of the contract. And I think you emailed out something earlier today, I think, right?
I did. I just a quick fact sheet on, I don't have a presentation. We've done a lot of presentations on the complete streets, but what I will say is we put the project out to bid. We had a very good plan. It came back. The low bid was within a few percent of the engineer's estimate. Green International is the engineer. They did a very thorough assessment of the bids, reference checks with the low bidder, and we're ready to execute the contract. It'll be on David's desk in the next few days for David and Sharon to sign it, and I think Heidi. So what I just wanted to go through the funding that's going to go into this project, because it's not one set of funding. I just wanted to go through it and have you guys support it so that everyone feels comfortable signing this contract. And I'll read through this real quick if you want, Eric.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
What we had from the Complete Streets grant was approximately $209,394. We have a housing choice grant that was originally $100,000, and we used some of that for engineering. And that's what actually extended the amount of sidewalk we could do. There's $75,000 left. When Abbey Road got built and there was the slight land swap, there's a payment from Murchison for $5,000. We have that. There's a sidewalk fund, $12,000. So we have about $301,394 in funds and payments to be spent. The contract that we're going to award is $477,273. We've been advised that we should have a 10% contingency. So that's another $47,727, leaving us needing almost exactly $525,000. So the net is to fund the entire thing including the contingency, we need another 223,606. Last year's annual town meeting warrant, which was for road management and for this purpose, has 260,000 that's uncommitted. So the intent is we're going to leave the 260 uncommitted to use here for the rest of the contract and hang on to for the contingency.
And at 260 capital funds, you said?
What? Yeah, that's annual town meeting. Yeah, capital funds.
Okay, so when it said they don't turn into a pumpkin, they don't expire on June 30th. They're available past that.
Correct. Yes, the warrant article funds. Yeah.
All right.
You're not asking for any additional money then?
Actually, Paul.
I am not asking for additional money.
I want to recognize Paul.
Sorry.
Thank you. I wanted Sean to describe what the project is. We've been talking about how to fund it, and we're assuming that the voters have been following this as we follow it. But please describe the project. What sidewalk are you talking about? What street are you talking about? What is the plan? And how is it going to benefit the town?
So the biggest part of the project is a sidewalk that's going to start just north of Woodhaven. Village Way.
Yes.
And it's going to traverse down the hill, past the fire station, through beyond Rose's parking lot, and terminate in front of Sherburne Kitchen's Wise's building, just beyond Rose's. There's going to be a new lighted crosswalk. Just north, there's a crosswalk that's in front of Rose's Automotive that's going to shift a little bit to a better spot onto the sidewalk on the other side. So there'll be another lighted crosswalk, just like the one at the fire station. There's a part of that construction is rebuilding the wall that's in front of Abbey. So that wall is going to get rebuilt. So part of it gets shifted back a little bit to leave room for the sidewalk. Another part of the project is what we call the rail trail. It's actually a connector from Whitney Street. The new development down there, there's going to be some parking spaces for the public at the foot of the hill, just below the bridge. You'll be able to walk in and get to the rail trail that connects to the Holliston rail trail through what looks like a field right now. That for those of us that grew up here, that was Schiavi's field.
That's right.
And it's still very much a field, and that path will traverse across the field and then down onto the rail trail and connect into Holliston.
Don, is that past conservation? I know there was an issue with conservation with that.
So there's an issue with conservation on the railroad bed. The path actually traverses past that and then drops on beyond what was perceived as a vernal pool at one point. So part of the railroad bed will still be there. The path will go up and around it.
Okay. So that's through, so you can complete that without, conservation's all set. You don't have to still get approvals from them. It's all set to go.
No, we don't need approval from them because we're working on, it's partially on an easement that was granted by the developer down there. And then some of that path is on our own property that we took ownership of when we bought the railroad.
Okay.
I had a couple honestly technical questions, which I'll just more because I don't want to divert questions on this about the actual sidewalk across the rail crossing and the material you're going to use to construct the downtown portion of the sidewalk. But I'll just follow up with you later.
Okay, but I'm eager for any assistance. Two people I'm looking at on my screen with the state on trying to get a new railroad crossing, because the one thing this project does not include is a wider railroad crossing with gated crossing at North Main Street.
Yeah, that was exactly my question, to be honest with you.
And my best advice from anyone I've talked to, and I talked to a lot of people, was any political throw you have with the state, Mass DOT, who controls the money for the crossings, you should hit it that way.
Crossings are weird. Aren't they regulated by, and it's very odd, the Department of Public Utilities It makes no sense, but I think because I've had to deal with some crossings in Framingham, it's actually DPU. Mass DOT might do some funding for them. But I think DPU. I actually had two very high up contacts at DPU, both neither of which have the job after the Lowell explosions. So.
Ouch. Well, I think at this point now the money is within MassDOT
Okay,
because of the MBTA owns it.
that's right.
Because they own that rail, they control which ones. So we had no say in the matter. I would have chose North Main before Hunting, even though Hunting needed to get done. So we've done Prospect Street and Hunting Lane, and we didn't do North Main Street. So within a year, there's going to be a sidewalk without a real crossing. I'm hoping that's going to help motivate some people to get that crossing done.
All right.
So that's most of the project. There's also some really nice signage. There's some school zone safety signage that comes along with us. Some lighted, there's some speed feedback signs as you're going to roll into the the school zone now, you're going to get your speed feedback that you see in other towns.
Yep.
So if you're doing 40 miles an hour through downtown Sherburne, you're going to have a sign flashing your speed at you.
They had temporary ones of those on Goulding. I'll be interested
Yes.
if the police felt that helped or not. I know on my bicycle, I hit 42 miles an hour twice on it.
You challenging yourself, Eric?
It was downhill. It probably hurt more than it was. I'd actually have a friend be on the spotlight so I could really crank on it. But anyway. All right. Any questions? I can now see the entire general public. So any questions from the general public on the complete streets? I think it's a great thing. I'm so happy we found this funding. I'm certainly willing to support using last year's capital funds remaining of the 260,000. I don't know if there's any discussion among the board on this.
No, I think I'll move to support the execution of the contract for the Complete Streets project with the use of the grant money and housing choice grants, as well as ATM 20 roadwork article funds.
Second.
And second by Paul. Okay. All in favor, Jeff? Jeff, you're on mute, by the way.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Paul?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
And I am as well. Good job, and thank you very much, Sean.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Sean.
This
Okay.
sidewalk, by the way, is a long time coming, and it's going to benefit Woodhaven and Leland Farms and kind of bring the community together. We've always needed a sidewalk on both sides of North Main. This is going to provide that. So it does do a nice job of bringing the downtown together.
Oh, it's huge. In fact, if anyone remembers, unfortunately, Chuck's not here anymore. When I was on the planning board, I was the one that actually fought for the mitigation funds from Abbey Road to do this. And I think it's the most critical sidewalk in town. As we have Abbey Road, Leland Farms, Woodhaven, we have a massive population there of people that have no real practical access to downtown. As the existing crosswalk system that crosses the split there is very dangerous, and have always been against that. I think the sidewalk is frankly, it seems small to some people being just a sidewalk. I want to say it's one of the most important infrastructure projects we've done in years, to be honest with you.
Yes.
That's my opinion.
I couldn't agree more. It's also, by the way, there's a playground at the end of Cemetery Lane that's not connected by any sidewalk. At least it had a good crosswalk, but it's huge. I'm excited to get it going. It's going to take a little while. We're in the middle of winter, but I'm excited to get it started.
Yeah, very good.
There is this question about whether we're going to use brick. A lot of people complain about the brick and the plowing and the snow getting into the bricks and all that kind of stuff. And
We are not using brick.
You what?
We are not using brick.
Yeah, that was one of my follow-up questions. It's a balance between the aesthetics and balancing the aesthetics. And the only reason I want to talk about brick is actually it just will look like a lopsided road if you have one side concrete. What I would support is bituminous south of the tracks and concrete north of the tracks. Again, downtown. I don't think I'd want to see bituminous north of the tracks.
Yeah, the aesthetics are important. And remembering that the discussions about the brick on the west side, it does add a sort of a texture and a quaintness, makes it kind of a village feel. And it will be lopsided if we decide to do something different across the street.
Well, frankly, the brick, there's not a piece of that brick that's ADA compliant. There's nothing on the other side of the street that's ADA compliant. In fact, we have to take sections of it out to put in the ramps to make them ADA compliant where the crosswalks meet. None of the at grade crossings on the parking lots are ADA compliant. None of the sidewalk is, and it's nearly impossible to keep maintained at a high level.
To make a ramp ADA compliant, you can really only do it in concrete. You might put the span something different. The span, the flat section of the sidewalk can actually be pavers or bituminous or something like that. But there's you can really only make a ramp ADA compliant by pouring out of concrete. It's the only way.
Right.
So I guess I will ask you then now, since we're still on this, you're not gonna do bituminous north of the tracks, are you? That'd be the one thing I'd strongly oppose.
Yeah, it's already done. I mean, this is already a public bid project. It's done. There's concrete ramps with cast iron detachable, but everything else is bituminous. There was never a conversation about doing brick. The brick in front of Walgreens will remain except for the sections where we had to drop the ramp.
Well, brick or even concrete. I just don't think a bituminous sidewalk fits well in the downtown environment there. I understand south of the tracks, but I support concrete. And actually, at today's prices, concrete can be done almost as cheaply or at the same price as bituminous.
We can ask.
Eric, can you explain to me? Sorry, I just don't know. What's the difference? I don't know what bituminous means.
Bituminous is asphalt. It's what's poured on the road. Yeah. And concrete's concrete. You know what I mean? And I just think that it's just my opinion that the aesthetics of a downtown environment, bituminous just looks ugly. It works well in more rural environment or kind of less formal or suburbia, which you could basically say is south of the tracks. I just personally think bituminous would just be a bad aesthetic north of the tracks. That is my opinion, and it's just consistent with things that I've seen. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
I agree with you, Eric, on this. And
Let's
so
look at how many feet that is. I mean, it's significantly more south than it is north.
Yeah, most of it is south. Absolutely, most of it is south. I don't think it'd be a huge change.
Most of the north side is parking lots. It's shading the parking lots because there's a large tarmac in front of the fire station, then Rose's, and even in front of the day spa. There's not a whole lot of sidewalk there, to be honest with you.
So it probably wouldn't be much price change, if anything, to quantity to make that concrete, and that's what I would support. That's all.
I agree.
All right, we'll talk more offline.
Yeah.
Okay. All that being said, we're off to agenda item number 5.
I'll move to appoint Charles Yan to the Police Chief Search Committee as a full voting member.
And I did have a comment on this. How does, and I talked to Dave about this, how does this appear in the charter? So everything else in the, I call the charter of the committee, whatever else, the charge of the committee, has a position, select board, town manager, fire chief, representative. Should this actually be us creating a spot for ex-selectmen?
I would
former
say an
selectmen?
at-large. I would just say it was an at-large appointment.
So do we have to create an at-large in the I call it a charter or something like that? You know what I mean? I'm just uncomfortable saying there's a Chuck Yon position, or something like that, that he's filling a position that's somewhat defined in the charter. Does that make sense?
So if I could do a friendly amendment to what George said, that there'd be 2 parts to the motion. The first is to expand the committee by the creation of an additional at-large position.
Okay.
And secondly, to fill it with Chuck Yan.
Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense.
That makes more sense. Thank you, Paul. I'll take that as a friendly amendment.
And I don't want to taint this at all, but we're obviously foregoing any 30-day advertisement.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So was that a movement by George,
Yep.
the friendly amendment? Can I have a second? Second by
Second.
Paul. All right. All in favor, Jeff?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
I am I as well. Welcome aboard, Chuck. You can't hear us. Next agenda item, agenda item 6, consideration of special municipal employee status. Kate Potter for the Regional School Committee. David, are you speaking on this?
I can. It's basically we have this conversation every now and then about special municipal employees, and it's usually to just make a declaration that the person is in two positions under the same entity. Is that a quick enough description, Paul?
Well, could I expand on it a little bit?
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So there's actually two votes or two parts of any motion that needs to be made. There's two things that need to be done. The first is we don't designate a person as a special municipal employee. We have to designate a position, and the position is the school committee, the entire school committee. So to the extent that we haven't already done it, and I think my recollection is that we did do this. And
Yeah,
somewhere
you have, long time ago.
yes.
Yeah.
So I think they're already special municipal employees. This
didn't-
second part.
Go ahead.
Second- The second issue to be decided is that in order to hold two positions, a special municipal employee can make a disclosure to the Board of Selectmen. And the Board of Selectmen can decide whether, based on that disclosure, the interest isn't so troubling to us that we would deny them having the ability to have two jobs. So we want to essentially vote in this case to allow her to have the two positions under the conflict of interest law 20, section 20D. We're going to vote to waive any conflict because we don't think it's going to affect the quality of the services that the community receives. I'm paraphrasing here in lay terms.
And just to be considered, just for the background material for our audience, she's on the regional school committee and she's looking to be the Dover-Sherburne Metco liaison. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I think Paul.
So
So it's just simply a motion and a vote by this board to basically say it's okay.
Yes, vote to approve the exemption of her interest from the operation of section 20 of 268A.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor, Jeff?
I,
Paul?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
And I am I as well. Okay, moving on. Sorry, I heard an echo there. Moving on to the next agenda item, number 7. Consideration of draft goals and objectives for the select board. That's Jeff Waldron, and he gave a great presentation last time. I think he has a little bit more on that as well.
I'm going to reshare again so you won't see everybody for a second here, Eric.
Okay. It's okay as long as people use that raise hand feature.
Yeah. And if I could figure out what the heck I'm doing. Let's see here. Hang on a second. So basically, I'll talk while I'm navigating here. After last week's meeting, I updated the goals consistent with your recommendations at the last meeting, and then I sent the whole presentation to all the boards and committees in town. Is that showing up now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yep.
So I sent this to all the committees in town and got some feedback. I asked for feedback for by Wednesday last night. So that's what I did. I'll just quickly go through the changes I made since last week, and then we can look at it overall if you want. So one thing I did was I at the beginning of each goal section, I call it a mission statement. So it's a higher level, we had some tasks or goals under each one, but I tried to put a bit of a mission statement in blue at the top of each of the 6 major categories. And the things that I added, one thing was to the town infrastructure project, building out the location, which we're trying to work on the library with, building out the location for the Historical Society Museum, which the town is obligated to provide space for based on the original donation of the Dowse Library. And then I had a good call with Marian Neutra this morning, and we redid the new development section. They are taking one of the goals I had and making it part of the mission to link with the town master plan and open space and recreation and housing goals, and then have the 3 tasks under that. And then the other one where I got a lot of feedback was from the Energy Committee and the Board of Health on sustainability. So I edited that section reflecting input from them as well. I got a little bit of comment from library trustees and various other people in town. So this reflects all the input I've received, and I'm open to any further comment from the board.
Jeff?
Yes, Paul.
So if I put my lawyer's hat on, there's one that we shouldn't have here
Okay.
for legal reasons. And I'm happy to explain that at length in an executive session, but I don't want to explain that right now in public session.
You want to say which one it is in public?
Yes,
Or no?
yes, it's under new development and it is item B,
Yep. Okay. Makes sense.
having,
Yeah. Yeah, good catch.
Okay, so we can talk about that later. Should we?
yeah, I would leave
Should
I would leave that whole thing out, that one out.
leave item B out altogether?
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Do you
And
want to say anything on that development though? Just say continue managing, or something more innocuous?
I think we have it covered in the mission statement.
Okay. So
But sure, if you want to say manage development in the town, but I don't think we should mention that specific. I don't think we should call out a particular
okay.
property and a particular property or in.
Well, I do in A. I do.
He does an A, so I think we can at least maybe not say challenge it, but to say continue to monitor or continue to respond to the 40B application, and because it is something that's on our immediate agenda that we have to address, that the Hunting Lane North Main Street project.
For legal reasons, I just don't think we should have this at all. I think this is going to be used against us.
Well, I would defer then. I think if you feel that way, I would just take it out. I think we should do that.
Yeah. I would like to see it taken out, even if it's something that does take up our time and so on. It's and I would remove it.
Okay. Well, I'll make that change.
And other than that, I wanted to compliment you. I think you did not just an excellent job, but adding in these mission statements, I think has really clarified it and elevated it so that there is a real momentum, more emphasis, a catchiness to it. I have 2 suggestions here. One is that we consider some prioritization between these. We have these 6 goals and then we have all these subparts. Is there something that's a little more important than others and we should have as sort of our top priority and then other things of lesser priority, or do we want to treat them all as being on equal footing?
I think I think it's hard to say because, I mean, is town infrastructure the #1 priority? The library, I feel like, is getting the library done, but is every other line item a priority over everything else? So I think it's hard to say one of these 6 categories is more important than another. Within the line items, there's certain things that are, but
So that's George, you phrased it well. I think the way I would describe this from my strategic work is that the next step would be to create tactics for some of these things, and the tactics would have priorities. In other words, you know, we're not going to all of a sudden vote on the senior center, but we might want to launch a team to start looking at the senior center, and that would be a priority to just launch the team, and then it can go off and be doing things for a while. So I think we should, if we're okay with the goals, and you know, if people want to send me additional edits after the meeting, that's fine, and I'll make the change to the new development that we talked about. But the next step would be to create tactics, sort of higher level tactics in each one of these sections. We may in fact assign, you know, there are 5 or 4 of us right now, used to be 5 of us, you know, we could assign, like Eric and I've been working on the library a lot, for example, so we may assign a select board member to follow up on different ones also, or have a lead responsibility.
That leads to the second comment I was going to make, because what I've seen in other communities for goals is to project some kind of timeline.
Yes.
And that's sort of implicit with the priority, but the difference between establishing a priority in terms of importance and a timeline is that some projects take a long time.
Yes.
So the fact that the timeline for it might be, let's say, a year out, doesn't mean that it's less important or more important than a project that we expect to get done in the next month.
Correct.
But there's something to be said about having some dates on this, or some guidance, at least to the chair, about when to put something on an agenda. So if we say, gee, by the end of the summer, we should have addressed, I don't know, let's say the future of the caustic property, at least we know that we ought to have a meeting about it at some point before the end of the summer. But if you have no dates at all, we don't want this just to sit on a shelf.
No, I understand. I think it would be more at the tactic level, though. Now, what's the next step in some of these things? But because I don't want to make this too complicated and have too much information on a one page. So I think I'll think about a way in which we could depict a second document that then looks at how do we implement each one of these, is really what you're talking about.
Okay.
Not necessarily a second document, but another slide in the same document. So if anyone wants to, after the meeting, send me additional things, I'll make the change we talked about and circulate it again. Do we need to vote on this, or is this just something that we'll continue working on?
Oh, I think we should vote on it.
Okay.
Can I just add one comment? This is David.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
Under town infrastructure H, it says build location for Historical Society Museum. I don't know if we'd actually, I don't know if build is the right word. That's all.
I
Identify.
thought that was included in the library.
Well.
Oh, you weren't at the last trustees meeting.
Yeah. I need help in that front, because
I would maybe not use the word build then, because that almost sounds like you're putting up a new building. I would maybe say find a location for the Historical Society Museum.
we're going to have to build it out. We're going to
Identify. Yeah.
We have to create space. It's going to have to be conditioned. It's going to have to be sprinklered. It's going to have a security alarm system, which the basement of town hall had. We forced them out of town hall basically in order to make COVID-19 accommodations to town hall. So we're required to provide space for the museum.
No, I agree that the wording, that we would use is building out a space, but it's misleading to people that I think they'll jump right on that and think that we're building something.
Right.
Well,
I don't know how you.
I would say more of a find a location is more.
Yeah.
I would use the word identify. I really would.
Okay.
It does sound, I know what you mean when you say build out, but it's just
Yeah. Build out means more, that is more relevant than build, because build, the way it's written right now, it sounds like you're building a new building, which scares everybody.
I just said a location, but yeah, I guess so. But you know, we're paying right now. The town is paying rent for all the museum that's in storage at Gentle Giant, for example.
Mhm.
So
Well, I'm not saying we're not going to do it. I'm just saying the way it's worded, we need to work on.
I'll change it to identify, but we're gonna need to work on. I need help. Arm twisting.
Identify, or I would maybe write it like that then. Identify and build out a location. Build out a location, not build a location.
Renovate. Renovate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or build out is better than just build, because
Okay.
build out to me means fitting out a space. Build means something new construction.
Okay. I'll play with it. But I need help on the horsepower side. We're getting a lot of pushback from the library, and I don't think that's correct. It really makes sense for me for it to be in the library, partly because it was part of the original donation of the library, and the educational aspect of having the museum there, where you know Pine Hill students can go, you know, see the exhibits and maybe have a presentation in the meeting space.
In normal place, I don't mean normal places. I mean in libraries, they have a synergy with some sort of museum attached to it, or involved in it, or they dedicate a floor to it.
Yes,
That's very, very common.
I know. And it was originally, because it was part of the original donation, it was in the Douse Library when it started for George Fitz can tell you how many years, but a lot of years. Okay.
Right. Very good. I'm sure I'll think of comments. To be safe, how do you want to do this? Do you want to have like send all comments to Diane and David or something like that, and then fun with you? I don't know if there's any kind of open meeting things here.
On the revisions to the goals, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
They can email you directly, Jeff, or us, either way.
Yeah. And you just
It's
can't,
just
can't have a dialogue about it. I can't have
Right,
a discussion.
exactly.
And he comes and presents the changes here. So essentially it is presented at an open meeting, blah, blah, blah.
well, it's not time sensitive. I can make all these changes. We could vote at the February 4th meeting if you want. I don't know that we haven't had goals in the 18 months I've been on here. So another 2 weeks isn't going to kill us.
Right. Yeah, I've been on here for 3 years and I haven't seen any.
It's only been 12 years.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm fine with making these changes, and any other things people email me, and just have it be on the agenda for only a vote, not a discussion next meeting if you want.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. That's it. Very good. Thank you for putting this effort, Jeff. And this is huge. It is.
Yeah, it looks great.
The structure. Absolutely. All right. So moving on, agenda item number 8, 2021 annual town meeting warrant development. We closed the warrant on the 7th. Background material, and this is for David.
Yeah, we haven't really done anything with the warrant since the last time you've seen it. So that's why there wasn't anything new really in your packet about it. So there's really nothing to report on that.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Yeah, George.
I had a conversation earlier today with David Goldberg from the Recreation Commission on it's line item 21, the feasibility study for the turf field at Laurel Farms. They're past a feasibility study. They're hoping to actually have bids in hand to vote on installing turf at Laurel Field. Like they've done feasibilities. Like it's more than that they're hoping by March they'll have a whole proposal to be installing turf. So I just want to clarify that's, and his question to me was, should that be a capital item? Because he wanted to know whether he should be submitting this to the capital budget committee or if it should be a separate article.
I think I would recommend it being included as a capital item.
Okay, I'll tell him then he should submit to Joe Shanahan because he got a form to fill out for that. I'll tell him to go ahead and do that and submit it to capital budget.
Yeah, Sharon, you're good with that? Okay.
You're muted, Sharon.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm
That's
sorry.
Okay.
I mean, one of the things just to mention on that one, they're looking at doing some fundraising and they have money set aside already. So they're not coming to the town to look to pay for the whole thing. Just there's a lot of discussions going on about some of the youth sports programs raising money to pay for it. So there's a lot of discussion around this item. But it is, I think it should go before capital budget. I think that's what I wanted to clarify.
So I'd like to make a suggestion.
Yeah, Paul?
Just like we're doing for the regular budgets, I'd like to call to the board of the select board some of the sponsors behind some of these articles, not just the citizen articles, but articles like the turf field, and hear them make a presentation, just like we've been listening to the police and the fire and the DPW, to make a presentation like on the field. Why not have them make a presentation to the Board of Selectmen, explain why, how much it costs, how much money they have, keep us informed. That way they keep the voters informed, because it becomes televised, but it also gives us a chance to take a look at it, and also be able for us to weigh the big picture on all of the projects that we have facing the town and how we're funding various things and so on. So the idea would be to do the same thing that we're doing with the budgets with all of the articles.
We included that in the form that went out to the people to when we were telling them the warrant was open. So they've been instructed to contact us to get on the agenda if they want the board's sponsorship. And then other people just to, if they have an article, to contact us to get on an agenda to review it with you, whether they're asking you for support or not. So, I mean, sponsorship or not. So those we are playing, those are all coming before you.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Nothing else. I look forward to seeing that fill out. It looks a little more full than it was when we saw it last time, by the way. And what do I have here? Well, there's more town meeting stuff, town meeting, blah, blah, blah. So I guess now down to consideration of administrative items and routine business. Are there any select board reports? How about the town administrator, David? Do you have a report?
Other than just quickly saying that we're still working on 3 vacancies, one for the Conservation Commission. We're close to a hire on that. And Council on Aging position is being a little bit delayed. There's more discussion on that. So, and then we have the police chief. So those 3 items are brewing around as vacancies. That's all.
And have you put in a budget request for a new computer?
Yeah, I'm gonna go to ITT and make one.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. It's not listed on here, but Sharon, do you have a report?
I guess what I'll let you know is that the audit is in process. It's going very well. I think we're going to be finished within a week or 2. Free cash is going to get certified a lot sooner. So it's things are going well.
Okay, very good. I'm sure I'll be hearing more from you as these budgets come through here.
Yes.
Okay. With all that being said, I think that is the close of open session. I'd like to move as a chair, I deem it necessary to move forward with executive session for items 1 and 2 as previously read by the assistant town administrator. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Jeff. Okay, all in favor. Jeff?
Aye.
Paul?
Hi.
George?
Aye.
And I am I as well. Okay, good night, everyone.